Ever wondered how you can study the night before the exam and still get a distinction? Well, I have a confession to make. Throughout my university journey, I've done that quite a number of times. There are specific courses that I never studied throughout the year, and I'll only start studying last minute, and most of the times the night before the exam. So in this video, I'm going to share with you things that I did to make sure that I remember most of the things that I studied the night before in the exam. And I'm not encouraging last minute studying in any way. I'm just saying, if you ever find yourself in a spot whereby you need to pull a miracle the day before the exam, here are a few things that you can do to save your life, or at least save your exam mark. So step number one, I want you to go pick a past question paper. So I want you to go randomly select any past question paper from those question papers that your teacher or lecturer has made available to you. And we're not doing the past question paper yet, but the reason why I want your starting point to be a past exam question paper is to prep your mind for an exam standard question. I've seen a lot of students go straight for the theory, trying to cover all the theory or the lecture material before they start doing exam standard questions. And what happens is they never get time to do the exam standard question because they cannot cover all the theory, right? And by the time they sit for that exam, what happens is they know most of the theory, but they can't apply it to the exam question because they didn't prep their mind for the exam standard type of questions. So I want your starting point to be a past exam paper. So step number one is picking that past question paper, and you can only pick one. Remember, you don't have time, so you can't be going through a bunch of question papers. So what I personally do is I'll open multiple question papers and I'll read through or skim through the questions, and then I look for the one that looked like it was the most difficult. Or for example, if I read through some of the questions and I'm like, if I was seeing these questions for the first time in the exam, I wouldn't have thought of anything, and then I'll pick that specific question paper. So you only need one. Step number two, I want you to use the active recall method to work through that question paper. Remember, you don't have time, so you can't see it and write out all the answers for that question paper. So what you need to do is to work through that question paper question by question, and after reading a specific question, you actively recall the answer. So what you do is you basically say out loud what you'd have written down if you are writing down the answer. And then after actively recalling or saying out loud the answer, you can go and review the memo and compare what you just said to what's in the memo and say, okay, cool, I mentioned this, I didn't mention that, or I forgot about this thing, right? And for those questions whereby you clearly struggled, when you read the question, nothing came to mind, then you can just note them down. So this method works best for theory kind of courses or subjects, but it also works for technical subjects or courses because you can talk through the process instead of the numbers. So you can say, okay, cool, here I needed to divide by this because of this, right? So it works for both type of courses, but mostly for theory, it will be easier for you to kind of like grasp whatever content they need you to know. So the key thing is you must make sure that whenever you actively recalling or you are saying out loud the answers, you don't refer to your notes or your textbook. So you must say whatever is in mind, and after, when you feel like you've said everything, you can look at the memo and see what's in the memo. So sometimes I do this even when I'm in bed, right? So I'll just pull out the question paper and read through the questions and try to actively recall the answers. So what I'll also do is, after reviewing the memo, I'll close the memo and try to read the question again and actively recall the solution, right? Also including points that I initially forgot when I was actively recalling. Because now I've seen the memo, I tried to speak through everything. So step number 3, you're going to strategically review your notes or call a friend. So after looking through all the questions that are in that specific question paper, you go and look for those questions in which you struggled with, right? So you noted them, or those questions whereby you looked at the memo and you couldn't understand why they did a certain thing a certain way, right? So you go back to those questions and then you ask yourself, what specific topic or section of my work was being tested there? And then you go strategically review all the notes, the lecture examples or examples from that specific topic, right? And after reviewing everything, you go back and look at the memo and try to understand whether you understand why the memo is in a specific way, or if you got the question now, will you have been able to answer that question. So this will strongly help you, especially to make sure that you don't go through the material of the content that you already know, right? So you strategically focusing on the areas in which you find difficult or you struggling with. So I found that doing this helps me to understand the topic in a broader way, right? So even if in an exam they ask a different part of that topic that I was struggling with, now I'll be able to answer it because I was able to review the notes for the entire topic and all the examples for the entire topic. And if you're still struggling with something after investing a bit of time to try and understand it after reading the notes, don't hesitate to call a friend. And I believe this can save you even more time, because if you get someone who already understands that specific section and then they can say, okay, cool, this is the process you're supposed to follow here, then you would have saved a lot of time. So remember, there are 3 ways in which you can prepare the day before and still ace your exam. Number 1, you pick a past question paper. Number 2, you actively recall while you're working through it. And number 3, you strategically review your notes or call a friend. So make sure that you drop a comment if you have any question, and you also share in the comment section what works for you during exam season. And lastly, make sure that you click that like button, you subscribe so that you can join the community, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.